If you believe tires are not important and completely irrelevant, you can skip this video and don't watch it unless you want to change your perspective or get to know a bit more about this topic. Behind is the selection of tires I have, and this video is not going to be about in-depth tech specification of the tires, nor I'm going to convince you that one brand or the model is the best over the other, and don't expect that I will suggest you the best possible solution for you, because everyone is different, and that's the reason why I got so much tires in the first place. Now, once we know what this video is not going to be about, I will cover the reasoning, what tires does, as well as what things you should look at when considering to change the tires, and everything will be backed up with some different manufacturers and models tire selection. Before we dive into the waters of rubber, it's very important to mention two things. There are lots of things to mention, but let's just begin with little detail as possible. So first is tires pressure. It very depends on personal preference, body weight, rider weight, the gear, etc. So when someone tells you that some pressure is better over the other, just testify this on your own and then make a decision whether it's better or not. And the second thing is that your internal width of the rim also plays a role how much pressure you should put into the tires. These topics are interrelated to each other, and if you change your rims to something else, you should consider adjusting the tires pressure. With that in mind, you can be sure that using the same pressure on fast track as works, or for example racing gravel Schwalbes, will give you a different feeling with the same pressure on the same rims. So even that should be considered. That pressure is very important thing, but about pressure of things in the future. On this side there are tires from 2.4 to 2.3, so they're a bit wider and chunkier, and on this side it's from 2.2 to 2.25. Now that gives us the first topic to consider, tires width. Is tires width important? In short, the wider the tire, the more rolling resistance you will get. That means in order to continue going at the same constant speed, you'll have to put more power. And that's kind of obvious thing, but some says that there is no big difference whether you go with 2.4s or 2.2s. Well, it might be not huge, but considering the stretch of the riding distance, and in this particular case probably racing should be considered. If you know that you are going in relatively easy track, which is not technical, I just don't see the reason why you should go with 2.4s. Basically you get the comfort of 2.4s for the sake of speed, which 2.2s could offer. So if you are into marathons and you go in very casual races, shall we say, then considering 2.2 is just common sense. These tires are all tubeless, and probably wonder whether I actually use them. Yes, they were used at least a few times each, and some, like Race King, are already almost close to death. I just kept packing those tires in order to make this video at some point, and here I am. In general, the wider the tire, the more comfort, the thinner the tire, you get more speed. But what is the trade-off? If thinner tires like 2.2 give you more speed, what then you lose against 2.4s, because they kind of offer you a comfort? And the answer is, apart from comfort, you lose braking surface to touch the ground. The wider the tires, the more contact you get with the ground, and that gives you more braking surface, and you get to drive safer in comparison to 2.2s. But again, with proper tires pressure, it's not a big of an issue, but definitely do not put 3 bars and check the pressures up to your taste. There are many different factors when it comes to the actual rubber compound, as well as the carcass strength of the tire, and I'm not going to get too much in depth about that, but what I want to point out is the thread pattern. I'm not exactly sure why I'm using Renegade for this example, but let's just pick Race Kings from Continental. The thread pattern is pretty much close to each other. The more closer the knobs in the center are, the faster the tire will roll. At the same time, the more gaps you have between the knobs, the better tire will clear out itself, but at the same time it will be a bit slower rolling, because essentially it has less contact with the ground and those knobs just sticks into the surface more and rolls less. It's also worth mentioning that the higher the thread of the rubber in the center is, the slower the tire will roll. The higher the distance in the center from the ground, the slower it becomes. There are side knobs which kind of gives you control on the corners if you lean the bike more enough. There are a lot of different things to cover about the thread pattern itself, and you can watch our videos on YouTube which does that perfectly. I would like to point out a different thing, is that if you see the pattern which is pretty much symmetrical like Renegade, I can guarantee you that this tire will be slippery. And at the same time, if we take a look at very similar height Race King from Continental, it will be a lot better grippy in those conditions. And I assume that is because of the thread pattern, which is less directional like here, so it's kind of for fast rolling, and this tire is only good when it's dry. The same I could point out about the Thunderbirds of Schwalbe's. In the center you can see the thread pattern is very small, that gives you less rolling resistance and you can go faster on the flats. But when it comes down to the cornering, yes, side knobs holds you a bit, but in braking situations or when the tire spins up, it's just, personally I don't like Thunderbirds, because when I brake I prefer that the bike stops and not just skids over. I prefer control over speed, and for that reason that tire is maybe for very fast rolling dry conditions where you know that it will be just full gas and nothing else. To wrap this up, thread pattern in the center as low as possible, it will give you a lot of speed. The more symmetrical center pattern is, it will give you more speed, but it's more or less dry conditions tire and hard packed. Otherwise you should choose something more like Race Kings. And actually Race King is one of those tires which I was surprised very much. In comparison, I also have Maxxis Aspens on my hardtail, and even though they have pretty much similar height of the profile, a bit less on the Aspens, I strongly believe that Race King is better tire than Aspen. What can I do? Actually, there are none of Maxxis tire there, even though I don't have anything against the Maxxis, they are just not there this time. And we have Schwalbe's, S-Works, Specialized, Continental, Pirelli, Wolfpack, even Bontrager's, I guess. Is it Bontrager? Yeah, it's Bontrager. I have Maxxis mounted on our wheel set, but from those main manufacturers, probably Vittoria was the only one which was not tested. Michelin's maybe, but in general, these are those.